On Thursday, Latin American countries started to distribute and administer COVID-19 vaccines. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, announced that a Brexit deal was finally being struck. In Ethiopia, at least 5 beni-shangul-gumuz local government officials were arrested after the massacre of indigenous people in that region. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. The first batch of Sputnik V vaccine arrived early Thursday in Argentina. Argentina approved the emergency use of the Russian vaccine to curb the spread of COVID-19, becoming the first nation in the region to authorize the shot. President Alberto Fernandez said earlier this month he hoped to vaccinate 300,000 Argentines before the end of the year and 10 million citizens in the first 2 months of 2021. With a population of 45 million people, Argentina ranks 11th worldwide in total cases, with over 1.5 million infections and more than 42,000 fatalities. Also on Thursday, Chile received the first shipment of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines. A flight carrying 10,000 vaccines arrived at Santiago Airport in the Chilean capital. Authorities stated that vaccinations of high-priority health workers from 4 Chilean regions are set to begin on Thursday. President Sebastián Piñera said the country has secured 30 million coronavirus vaccines from 3 suppliers. Chile is one of the hardest hit nations in Latin America. To date, the country registers nearly 591,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 16,200 fatalities.
Our intention is to vaccinate 5 million people from the critical group during the first quarter and then continue with the rest of the population. And our intention is to reach the majority of the 15 million people that make up the target population. Chilean citizens will receive the vaccine for free. You will decide voluntarily whether to take it or not. But we can tell you that this vaccine is safe and effective.
And Costa Rica received its first batch of COVID-19 vaccines late Wednesday and plans to start vaccinations on Thursday, joining Mexico among the first Latin American countries to begin mass immunization campaigns. President Carlos Alvarado said at a news conference that it may be the beginning of the end of this pandemic. The Costa Rican leader was at Juan Santa Maria Airport in the capital, San Jose, to greet a flight delivering the first 9,750 doses of the vaccine. Last week, the country announced it had approved the vaccine, with health workers and the elderly now expected to be the first to receive the jabs. To this date, the Costa Rica registers nearly 162,000 infections and over 2,000 fatalities. Like many others in the region, its health system has been placed under severe strain by the number of infections. And also on Thursday, 10 brigades of Cuban health professionals comprised of 231 doctors from the Henry Reeve International Contingent arrived in Panama to assist the fight against the pandemic and to focus their attention on those infected by the disease. The arrival of the Cuban medical mission comes at a more critical time in Panama and will remain at least 3 months. The country experiences a surge in number of infections that has overwhelmed hospitals, with more than 220,000 COVID-19 cases and over 3,600 fatalities. Healthcare workers in Mexico City received the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine against COVID-19 as the country starts a mass vaccination program. The launch came a day after the first 3,000 doses produced by U.S. pharmaceutical giant Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech arrived by courier plane from Belgium. Mexico registers more than 120,000 COVID-19 fatalities and around 1.35 million infections. Mexico City and surrounding areas last week announced a new suspension of all non-essential activities, warning that hospitals were in danger of being overwhelmed by a spike of the number of cases. Mexico has the world's 4th highest COVID-19 fatality toll after the United States, Brazil, and India. In Brazil, São Paulo Governor João Doria announced that they will begin administering a vaccine to the public on January 25th, but a delay in releasing phase 3 testing results has the local scientific community worried.
Monday, phase 3 of trials on the coronavac vaccine came to a close in the state of São Paulo. The vaccine was developed in partnership between the São Paulo state government's Butantan Institute and Sinovac, the Chinese pharmaceutical company. Now, they had initially announced that the results of phase 3 trials would be announced on Wednesday. But late Wednesday night, they held a press conference announcing that they wouldn't be able to reveal the full results for another 15 days. This has raised some red flags in Brazil's scientific community. People are worried that the efficacy of the vaccine is not as high as had been originally projected. Remembering that during the AstraZeneca-Oxford trials that were held at the national level in Brazil, initially they only reported 60% efficacy compared to 90% in the UK. This is also raising concerns that the state government will not be able to roll out the vaccine as planned for January 25th. On a positive note, officials did announce that of all of the vaccines that have made it through phase 3 testing to date, the coronavac vaccine is the safest. It had the least problems with side effects. The main side effect cited was pain around the area of the injection. No serious side effects were related. Nevertheless, as São Paulo goes into the Christmas season, people are beginning to get worried about whether they're really going to have vaccines or not next month.
Thank you, Brian. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on teleSUR.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomy. Monday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. The President of the European Commission said Thursday a Brexit deal has finally been struck. Negotiators from the European Union and Britain worked through the night and right into the Christmas Eve to put the finishing touches on a trade deal that should avert a chaotic economic break between the two sides on New Year's Day. After resolving the remaining fair competition and almost all fisheries issues on Wednesday, negotiators combed through hundreds of pages of legal text that should become the blueprint for a post-Brexit relationship. Now comes the peace and the race to approve and ratify the deal before the UK leaves the EU's economic structures at the end of the year. The British and European parliaments both must hold votes on the agreement.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. So we have finally found an agreement. It was a long and winding road, but we have got a good deal to show for it. It is fair, it is a balanced deal, and it is the right and responsible thing to do for both sides.
I'm very pleased to tell you this afternoon that we have completed the biggest trade deal yet, worth £660 billion a year, a comprehensive Canada-style free trade deal between the UK and the EU, a deal that will protect jobs across this country, a deal that will allow goods, UK goods and components to be sold without tariffs and without quotas in the EU market, a deal which will, if anything, allow our companies and our exporters to do even more business with our European friends, and yet which achieves something that the people of this country instinctively knew was doable, but which they were told was impossible. We've taken back control of our laws and our destiny. We've taken back control of every jot and tittle of our regulation in a way that is complete and unfettered. From January the 1st, we are outside the customs union and outside the single market. British laws will be made solely by the British Parliament, interpreted by UK judges sitting in UK courts, and the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice will come to an end.
And Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon reacted to the news of Britain's post-Brexit trade deal with the EU. The First Minister tweeted, "Before the spin starts, it's worth remembering that Brexit is happening against Scotland's will, and there is no deal that will ever make up for what Brexit takes away from us. It is time to chart our own future as an independent European nation." Russia registers a new COVID-19 cases record with 29,935 infections and 6,035 related fatalities in the last 24 hours. This was reported by the National Operating Center for the Fight Against Coronavirus. Most of the new infections were detected in the Russian capital, in St. Petersburg and in Moscow province. For its part, the National Consumer Protection Office informed that Russia has performed more than 87.5 million tests on the coronavirus to date. On Thursday, the Russian Emergency Ministry delivered humanitarian aid to the injured in Nagorno-Karabakh. Russian Emergency Ministry worker Vadim Garshin said the aid included building materials, basic commodities and electric generators. Russian peacekeepers are in Nagorno-Karabakh to monitor a ceasefire brokered by Moscow that ended more than 6 weeks of fighting between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Russia deployed nearly 2,000 peacekeepers for at least 5 years to monitor the agreement and facilitate the return of refugees.
Today, the Russian Emergency Ministry has unloaded and delivered to Nagorno-Karabakh another 9 wagons of humanitarian aid, including construction and roofing materials, basic commodities, as well as electric generators and firefighters' vehicles.
In India, farmers continue to mobilize in the streets for the country to demand the government repeal the agricultural laws that aim to liberalize the economy of the rural sector. This Wednesday, about 100 agricultural leaders held a meeting during which they decided to continue their protests until their demand for the minimum price of sustenance to be made legal. The farmers' leaders announced their willingness to dialogue and reported having sent a response to the government about their proposals to resume the talks and requested some concrete suggestions from the government as an agenda for discussion. Meanwhile, the government maintains its decision not to give in to the stated position that the laws will not be repealed. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us.
teleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and unpack the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real Life. Fridays. Only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. In Ethiopia, at least 5 beni-shangul-gumuz local government officials were arrested after the massacre that left at least 100 indigenous people dead in the region. Official reports reveal that among those captured is the Minister of State and Head of Labor and Social Affairs of beni-shangul-gumuz, Thomas Kui. The officials were arrested allegedly because of their political inability to annul the presence of armed groups in the region. The Ethiopian government reported that it is working to clarify the motive of the event and find those responsible. The African Center for Disease Control and Prevention alerts on the possible presence of a new variant of the coronavirus in Nigeria. The head of the health institution, John Negason, detailed that the contagious virus presents similar features to those detected in the United Kingdom and South Africa. However, Negason affirmed that it is not known the expansion of the new strain in Nigeria and neighboring countries because the variant has presents reduced data for the scientific study. And South Africa announced an alarming rate of spread of the coronavirus, with more than 14,000 new cases confirmed in the last 24 hours, including over 400 fatalities. Health Minister Zwelithini Mkhize said the latest update was the largest single-day increase in the cases. Mkhize also said the country registers more than 950,000 infections. The new COVID-19 variant in South Africa is now the most predominant as confirmed infections in the country approaches 1 million. While the variant transmits quickly and viral loads are higher, it is not yet clear whether it leads to more severe symptoms.
Yesterday we're at a record, and so that still means more hospitalizations coming in due course, and the system is really struggling to cope with that. I think it's very concerning because there's no sign at the moment that we're reaching a peak. There's still rapid exponential growth. We do need to think of additional restrictions so that it's clear to people the seriousness of the current situation, because already many hospitals in many parts of the country are extremely stretched.
Syria's government strongly believes that the Syrian people and army will soon achieve a definitive victory in the battle for the liberation of its territories occupied by terrorist groups and other foreign troops, a belief that drives the nation to prepare the conditions for the reconstruction and also the restoration of the areas to be taken back in the northwestern province of Idlib, the last extremist bastion in the country. Our correspondent Hisham Wanus has the story.
The Commerce, Industry, Agriculture and Tourism Chambers of Damascus, together with a large number of commercial actors and businessmen, launched the initiative Syria the Great Heart. The purpose of this campaign is to advance in the reconstruction of the liberated areas of Idlib and to prepare the logistic conditions for the restoration of the areas to be liberated, a joint state and private effort that, in addition to putting an end to the suffering of Idlib's inhabitants, seeks to recover the strategic agricultural, livestock and industrial potential of this province.
Idlib is one of the largest food producer areas in Syria, where there are millions of olive trees and other varieties, in addition to large poultry farms and multiple textile factories, along with other industrial and commercial facilities, which is why we launched this initiative for restoration, as it is of great importance to improve the national economy.
We are currently working to prepare the logistics, even though we know that Idlib has not been completely liberated. But this doesn't prevent us as businessmen from helping to recover and restore the province of Idlib and improve the standard of living of its brave inhabitants who are resisting terrorism and occupation, just as the other Syrian provinces did.
Meanwhile, the Syrian Arab Army and its Russian allies mobilized their troops and sent military and logistic reinforcements to Idlib in preparation for the great battle for its complete liberation, an action that takes place in response to the constant violation by al-Nusra terrorists of the ceasefire agreed last March between the presidents of Russia and Turkey, as well as the agreement of the de-escalation zones reached in May 2017 in the framework of the Astana talks, co-sponsored by Moscow, Ankara and Tehran.
All the ministries, as well as the Ministries of Agriculture, Industry and Tourism, establish work agendas to restore the liberated regions, and we are sure that very soon the entire territory of Idlib will be liberated, as well as the other territories occupied by foreign forces.
As in Idlib, the Syrian Arab Army continues its battle for the liberation of the other territories in the north and northeast of the country, currently occupied by US troops, the so-called Syrian Democratic Forces and other foreign forces. The current power struggle in the Syrian city of Ain Issa, bordering Turkey and under the control of Kurdish separatist militias, is an example of this reality.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.